Good afternoon. My name is Neela Rajendra. I am the Director of Entrepreneurial Initiatives at the Kravis Leadership Institute, and welcome to the second annual Global Leaders Forum. Today's theme is about empowering youth and women. In both this country as well as developing countries, these two groups, women and youth, are often those with the least access to resources, have the most obstacles to success, and in many areas are without a voice. So, for example, just down the road in Pomona, Pomona High School has a graduation rate of 52%, as opposed to Claremont High School, which has a 92% graduation rate. And every 9 seconds in the US, a woman is assaulted or beaten. So these are some stark statistics, but really call to light the fact that these are not third world issues, but really global issues. And so we have gathered today 9 amazing global leaders to discuss these issues and to learn together how we can empower both of these really important groups to create social change. And so our first panel is focused around the area of lessons in youth leadership, citizenship. So new models of primary education are teaching children the mindset that anything is possible through reading, sports, entrepreneurship, and a child-centered approach. In this light, education is the most important tool we can use to develop young people to be citizens. This panel is going to explore how innovative models in basic education are laying the foundation to developing visionary and authentic young leaders and empowering youth to be engaged citizens. Our moderator for this panel is Karan Saji, who is a senior at Claremont McKenna College pursuing a major in economics and leadership studies sequence. Karan was born and brought up in India and moved to the US for higher education. Karan's academic interests are marketing and leadership studies, specifically youth leadership. Karan serves as the chair to the Youth Leadership Member Interest Group at the International Leadership Association's annual conference. With that, I'll hand it off to Karan.
Thank you so much, Neela. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Kravis Leadership Institute, welcome to the Global Leaders Forum. Please join me in welcoming our panelists this afternoon. We have Shailendra Sharma from Pratham, and we have Anamra Beg from Pratham as well. We have Vicky Colbert from Escuela Nueva. We have Johan Kos from Right to Play, and Nicholas Kos from Injas Al Arab. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists. I guess we should get started with the questions. I will have an open-ended question as the first round for Pratham. And the question goes, how does your organization's education model encourage the development of social and creative skills among students?
We have 2 kinds of a student, and we have designed program for them. One is set of children for whom we have learning enhancement program, and for youths for whom we have vocational skilling program. Now, in these 2 programs, we have tried to move beyond the conventional mode of teaching and learning. For instance, among children in India, we find that children are in schools, but there is not adequate learning. So the pedagogy that we have developed, we call it KAMAL, which stands for Combined Action for Maximized Learning. This is combination of 5 different activities. That is say, listen, do, read, write. So this is quite interactive in a sense that the children get the chance to interact and a lot of peer learning happens. The focus is that children should be able to read the text given to them fluently. But this is not a very mechanical kind of an exercise. It's a very engaging and interactive exercise for the children. Similarly, for the youths, we have a large emphasis on skill building. Now we find that youths who have reached this stage have reached without ever getting opportunity to interact in a meaningful way when they were kids. So there are huge issues with respect to soft skills. So our program focuses on those soft skills. How do you confidently speak? because now you are about to enter the economic world where you are going to engage with lot many people. So unless you have the confidence in yourselves, it would be difficult to engage. So the whole model is geared to build those skills. Anamara, would you like to add anything on this?
Just one thing that specifically with the creative skills that you've mentioned here, Pratham has tried to move away from the rote learning, which kind of hampers the creativity in any child. And we've implemented practices within our programs that encourage creative learning. For instance, we have a specific science program that traditionally you have concepts of magnetism and different science concepts, which students generally only read in textbooks and memorized. But we try and have them build models, experiments. They use, we say that, take things that you can use from your home or find around you in nature, and to build the model. So this really enhances their creativity skills. So to answer your question, yes, we try and focus on different ways of building their creative skills.
Thank you. We'll pass the same question along to Vicky Colbert.
Yes, well, the essence of Escuela Nueva, which means new school in Spanish, is that we, very similar to Pratham, we challenge the conventional model of education that we all know, teacher-driven pedagogy. We've known the theory for more than 100 years, but this theory only comes to the elite schools, not to the poorest of the poor schools in developing countries and less in public schools. So what we managed to do was to transform this type of learning to really, nothing new in the philosophy, really child-centered participatory learning, a new role of the teacher for the 21st century. We started with the poorest to the poor at the margins of society, but we ended up with cutting-edge pedagogics. And actually, we have measured all this, and we have seen that just more of the same is not enough. So we had to introduce the pedagogy that we know, a transformative pedagogy, where students and children learn through dialogue and interaction instead of sitting behind each other looking at their necks. They're always dialoguing. Okay. And we moved from the teacher-driven into what everybody's talking about, social construction of knowledge. So it's a little bit like Paulo Freire in the classroom, but it's the issue that while you dialogue and you interact, you're developing the social skills we're all talking about now, just going beyond academics. Once we introduce this type of transformative pedagogy, you improve self-esteem. Once you improve self-esteem, then you start entering the domain of the 21st century skills, which is what a computer cannot do. Learning to learn, learning to take initiatives, but especially learning to work in teams. So we transformed massively a learning paradigm from a teacher-driven pedagogy into really child-centered. And we put in practice what Dewey talked about 90 years ago. You learn how to participate, changing the interactions of classroom and the way you learn. And this is not only for basic education. We've done it in secondary education now with women's empowerment also. But it's just changing your pedagogy. And we know the theory, but we just put it in practice in a simple way that any teacher, without having a PhD, could transform their learning environments. And we've done a lot of research behind this in the sense that published by the University of London on the impact of Escuela Nueva, not only on peaceful social interaction, but on democratic behaviors. So what Dewey said 9 years ago, we've managed to put it in practice.
Thank you. And Johan Koss, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, thank you. We're very similar type of approach to education. Obviously, we have all been selected prize winners, so they have a little bit of high standards. And I think the challenging the normal setting of educational forms is critical. And you're looking at the creativity and leadership in the young people. Now, they have a fantastic program, and but we apply it differently. We of course use in the same areas. We also work through the schools. We're trying to teach teachers doing a different type of pedagogy, but we use play as a fundamental tool. And we know that studies shown, and it's not very surprising, that creating creativity, play, is the fundamental part for particularly early childhood education. So that's even in the preschool years, but it's also equally critical during the years in the primary school years and secondary school years. And play can create anything. You can have creative play, you can have constructive play, you can have collaborative play, you can have all sorts of play. And as you create ways of learning through that way, you give by a fun way to learn, as a participatory way of participating. The children are doing it themselves, they experience it, that's how they're actually creating those skills that you're acquiring. And the good news is that we are using already existing systems. So the teachers in place, the people who are there, there's no need for a new infrastructure to create that. You just need to open people's mind to do it and train them in the ability to do play-based learning in our setting. That's why we are transforming education in about 20 countries as we speak, with different type of partnership with the ministries, teacher trainings, and practice in the schools level.
Thank you. Let's hear from Nicholas Nabauer.
Sure. Lot of similar things to what the members of the panel have already said, but I would say two ways that we are trying to encourage social and creative skills are via our model of delivery. So we're working with volunteers from the private sector that are going in to the public classrooms and teaching students our programs. In our part of the world, in the Middle East, everything is still very much, especially in the private sector, based on rote memorization. So this provides students with a very unique opportunity, and that they're able to be provided with challenges. One of our programs is called the Company Program, and over the course of an academic year, the students form small teams and actually develop their own business concepts and actually execute those business concepts and launch their own companies. So it's a lot more than just sitting down and answering these tests and quizzes that have been drilled into them over and over. We're trying to develop a lot of the skills that our colleagues here have spoken about. There was one more thing I was going to say, and I've lost it, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you so much. Please allow me to direct the second question for Escuela Nueva. A lot of your work deals with basic education and coaching. And when I say basic education, I mean you're teaching students hard skills of leadership, which is reading, writing, and speaking well. And then there's the soft skills, which is thinking well and acting well. So when you look at the achievements of your organization in the past, how do you quantify or measure these soft skills if your students are acting well or thinking well as leaders?
Yes, we had to go in measurement, we had to go beyond just cognitive achievement. Escuela Nueva in Colombia demonstrated, when it was well implemented in more than 20,000 schools, that we were, we started in the rural areas. Rural children outperformed urban schools except to the mega cities. So the cognitive achievement was there. But the issue is these other skills. So in this area, measurement is more qualitative. We have tried to build on what already exists. There are many institutions that are measuring these soft skills, and we ourselves are also developing instruments for measuring them. So this is something new that we have done, and this we worked also with the University of London, where we have seen and published the impact on peaceful behavior, on taking initiatives, and these instruments are more qualitative. But yes, this is our big challenge: how to measure these soft skills and these social skills. And by the way, it's once you change your learning paradigm, you empower people. So this is why we have moved beyond basic education, secondary education. We've done it also for non-formal context. This is most recently, because some of the women's organizations have come to us and they say, we need your pedagogy because it strengthens our teamwork. It strengthens our association as women. So now we're working with Fundación Capital, which is working in all Latin America, precisely educating women with the Escuela Nueva methodology. So it's been interesting because then it promotes much more empowerment and entrepreneurship. So you ended up, it's changing your pedagogy.
Thank you. Let's pass the same question to Pratham.
Well, reading and writing cannot be isolated from thinking or acting. It's a combination of thing that we do. But at the same time, if we have to measure it, measuring the reading and writing skill is more straightforward as compared to, say, thinking or acting. Those are slightly more complicated. We call our program Learn to Read. Because major energy we invested so far was to get the skills of reading and writing in the children. But as I said, the process is not confined just to a certain setup. It involves thinking and acting as well. And from learn to read, we move to the next level called reading to learn. So once you have learned to read, what would you do next? How will you critically analyze? How are you going to frame the questions? How are you going to answer those? And we are developing tools along that line. Incidentally, in a state of Maharashtra, those of you are aware of the geography of India, we are having a project supported by USAID. In that, we are precisely building in those elements. Once you learn the skill of reading, writing, how do you critically apply those, and how do you ask questions, how do you answer questions? So we will be able to come up with tools in a shorter period of time.
Thank you. And do we have a response from Right to Play and Jazz as well on this question?
Yeah, I think. Oh, so I'm sorry.
No, you go. Yeah, it's my cousin.
In Jazz, go ahead.
Sorry.
Please. No,
Sure. Okay.
I'm happy.
So I think we could look at this two ways if we want to look back and measure achievement of the students that have come through our program. We can look at it. Of course, we have anecdotal evidence. When we go and we track our alumni, we see what they're doing at certain points in the years. And of course, we have our success stories. We have the young people that have gone through our programs and then have gone on to create fantastic enterprises, and they're employing their colleagues. We have one story that we like to share about a group of Egyptian young men that started a company called Recycle Bikia, and they live in a poor area outside of Cairo, and they're now the first e-waste recycling company in Egypt, and they have a staff of 40 people, and they're generating a profit in only 2 years, and these were students that were going to a public school in a very impoverished area of Cairo. But if we want to look at it, we in a more scientific manner, we always employ pre and post exams that look at the ways we've changed student behavior, the way students think about entrepreneurship or working in the private sector, because one of the main problems in our part of the world is that it's oftentimes the parents that are influencing what the students will go on to do once they finish school. And there's a preference in our part of the world for them to go into the public sector, work for the government because it's seen as stable. Obviously, with the highest unemployment rate in the world, this is not sustainable. The government cannot continue to absorb this growing population of young people. So we look at ways that we're changing not only the students' skills and ability to think critically, to be creative, things like that, but also their and their families' perception of what acceptable career paths are, of even introducing them to these concepts of entrepreneurship or different career paths that might be available to them.
Thank you. Let's hear from Right to Play.
Yeah, no, we have no disagreements on this panel, by the way. All of you guys, it's very boring listening to this is very good. Let's go forward. I mean, the clarity on this is like what you're measuring on it. There's been some discussion or some mentioning on that. And this is where we find there's a bit of lack of understanding on what specific type of soft skill do you look for, which is like the change. Who makes the difference? Who makes the entrepreneur? What is who makes the leader? What is it that actually comes in place? Now, obviously, we are a Kravis Leadership Institute here, and they're leadership skills. So we believe it's to be trained. You know, it's nothing. So it's I totally believe in it by giving opportunities and practice and what you do on a daily basis. So we're measuring on kind of 4 to 5 kind of. Thing, but there is one big thing, because we deal with a lot of individuals living in a very traumatic situation, affected by war. Like we were just talking about the situation in Jordan with all the Syrian refugees, which is now integrated into the communities. These young people coming in there obviously have a large amount of trauma associated with their life. and extremely limited resources. So resiliency becomes a very big factor. And you wonder, like, why have some people higher resiliency versus other lower resiliency? How can you maintain and provide bigger resiliency? And then you have to, and so resiliency, there's a whole global research on resiliency. There's like a number of factors included into resiliency. The resiliency is not itself simple to measure, but you have to define what do you mean by resiliency. And there's tremendous, great number of research out there just on that. So I to challenge you guys to learn more about how to get to that, because if you don't have resilience, you obviously won't get any of the other skills. I mean, looking at problem-solving skills, the ability to literally overcome the issues they're having. Creative skills, which becomes an entrepreneur or an architect, or it's kind of a sign of creativity in any type of things. It comes from a basis of creative skills. And then what we're also looking at is readiness and interest in learning, very similar to what you guys have. You're going from learn to read, and then read to learn. Yeah. And then what is the factor who makes them interest in learning? What is actually in the soft skills who make a child from one sector being non-interested in learning to another? I mean, and coming from sport is actually very interesting, because sport has its self-motivating factor. We learn a lot about how to motivate athletes to become better. And I know there's a lot of athletes in the room. I see you recognize from being here earlier. And that is a self-interest, and you actually use a lot of what we're using in sport in the educational sector to figure out what are the factors that makes a person more self-motivated in achieving their own skills than others who doesn't have that and doesn't have care, and then don't really get the same results or feels like this should be provided. There's a lot of challenge in this thing, and in the social, we're dealing in the social sector. This is also extremely complex, because people are equipped differently. And it's about finding the best skills in every single person, because it does exist out there, just to find that area where they thrive to be successful. And so this is not an easy thing. You're not this magic wand saying, okay, here we are with 4 beautiful organizations, we can solve the world's problem. This is much more complex to kind of get the results of that. And we need every student, at least in this room, to look at it research method-wise to be able to understand what will be what's the magical touch.
Right. Thank you so much. Well, we have one last question, and please allow me to direct that to Injaz first. Okay. What do you think are the most valuable lessons you teach the youth? And in return, what is the most valuable lesson you've learned from your work?
That's a good question. I think the most valuable lessons we teach the youth, obviously there's a lot of importance that we would place on the soft skills and on creativity and all the things that we've been talking about today. But I think fundamentally what it comes down to, what I've seen when I've interacted with the young people that take our programs, is that they come out of the programs believing in themselves to a much greater degree than when they entered the programs. Mm-hmm. They're being offered opportunities that normally in their normal schooling they're not challenged with. No one's also empowering them in the public school system that we have at present in the region. Thankfully, it's beginning to change. The ministries of education are slowly turning gears and starting to look at ways of changing this. But the most impressive thing, I think, to all of us at INJAZ is seeing how students can come out with much higher goals for themselves, and also being much more aware of problems in their communities. We have a lot of social entrepreneurship programs that are transformative, not only for the students, but the communities as well. The second part of your question.
What did you learn most?
What did we learn most?
Yourself. That's hard.
It's an open-ended question, so please feel free to jump in anytime.
I'll just jump in on the last question, because what I learned most is that I don't know anything. It's actually interesting because, when I founded Right to Play 13, 14 years ago, from an idea of how I was going to do it, I thought I knew the answers. And I'm sitting here, we're operating in an exceptionally different way than I ever thought we would. I've learned so much on the road to get there, and I realized that I'm very happy I started, and I believe that I knew stuff, and I'm happy that I was listening to others in a way of getting to where we are today, because we would not be anywhere close to what we're doing if it wasn't for the tremendous learning from others. So this is the, I can tell you from the operation model developed by the Burmese people in the refugee camp in Thailand, to the junior leadership in the slums of Kampala, to programs coming up of learnings from any part of the world. And literally, I've just been sitting on the top and being honored by prizes and getting to be at these panels and speaking. But it's absolutely incredible. And what I think the youth have learned valuable teaching Duluth is it's the same. It's like, we believe in you. You can make a difference. One single person can make a difference here. Every single person has talent, skills, and something you can thrive, which you like to do, and stick to that and just keep doing it enough. And don't give up when you hit the wall, because I guarantee you're going to hit the wall many, 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 many times. This is so interesting. So Michael Jordan has this quote, which is quoted by him. He says, everybody remember all my victories. Nobody remembers all the 6,700 penalty shots I missed, or the games we lost, or the times I was injured, or the things nobody remembers that. He's remembering that. There's a classic thing that the people of success have had more failure. In 10, 15, 20 times more failure than ever success. And you should always remember that when you hit the wall and you do that. And I think that's the message we're trying to tell the people. Is just the only one which is kind of showing success and abilities is that they don't give up. That's the only skill you actually need to succeed.
Yep. Thank you. Let's have one more response from...
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think in the Pratham experience, one of the very powerful things that we have learned from the youth is how motivated they are. And they've really, over the years, formed the backbone of Pratham. They are the ones implementing the programs across the country, and they've shown so much leadership and ownership to actually implement the program. So that's something that we have really learned from the youth, their motivation. So that's something I wanted to share. Yeah.
And as John said, it's we who are learning most of the time, and we get credit for the things, but it's actually the youth in the field who have done. Incidentally, one of the biggest programs that Pratham has, we call it Read India. The goal is that every child should be able to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. The pedagogy of that particular program was developed by people in the community, youths, who tried different things in their own setting, and they came up with a model which says, okay, in a span of say 30 to 40 days, children who have orientation to that language, they have been hearing that language, their own local language, they would be able to read if you follow a particular pattern. This was not done by any educationist or anybody else, but it was youth who were working in that communities who themselves had the courage to try out different things and come up and say, see, I tried this and it is working. So this was a major learning. Today Pratham is known for its reading program, but the genesis of it was and the creation of that model was the local youths working in the communities.
Well, please go ahead.
3 words. First of all, there is a right to participation, right to participate. So your pedagogies have to reflect those rights, the right to participate. Youth are the actors of change. That's it. That's my summary.
Thank you so much for a wonderful panel. Please join me in thanking our panelists.